you should consider it doing violence to a majority civilian population with the deliberate effort of making political change. If that is something that you consider terrorism, right? If that's what you consider terrorism, and that's, I think, as closest to the truth as you can get with respect to what terrorism is, okay? Then the American government would be the arch terrorists of the planet. That's it. The reason why I consistently show you people, movements, groups that were considered terrorists by states, right? That we now understand, now that time has passed, is not actually, like, they weren't actually bad or wrong, and they had a moral position that was correct, is so you understand and interpret current instances of violence that are coming from non-state actors. Okay? That shit is food for people who feed on your content. You should talk about revolutionaries. I do. Yes. In the American Revolution, the founding fathers were considered terrorists by the British Empire. In Vietnam, the Viet Cong were considered terrorists as the American military was dumping napalm on Vietnamese villages. Okay? So that's it. Here, I'll end it on this note, this beautiful note that I think many, even reactionaries, agree with. Here. Okay.
For us, smug, greedy, well-fed white people have invented a language to conceal their sins. It's as simple as that. The CIA doesn't kill anybody anymore. They neutralize people. Or they depopulate the area. The government doesn't lie. It engages in disinformation. The Pentagon actually measures nuclear radiation in something they call sunshine units. Israeli murderers are called commandos. Arab commandos are called terrorists. Contra killers are called freedom fighters. Well, if crime fighters fight crime and firefighters fight fire, what do freedom fighters fight?
Yeah. That's it. Asmus Chat thinks Carlin is right-wing and love him. Yeah, that's why I showed George Carlin. A lot of right-wing people think, you know, a lot of right-wing people think George Carlin is right-wing. Yeah. Palestinian hostages are called prisoners. Israeli hostages are called hostages. This designation still exists. PFT was shitting on Trump's Gaza plan. Yeah, I saw this.
Gaza that he's got going on.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Build a Trump property.
I'm gonna pee real quick
in Gaza.
This is a great
turn
video.
It into the Riviera of the Mediterranean. I've heard a lot of ideas in my day. I'm a good listener. What can I say? I hear a lot of people with a lot of ideas. I try to listen to all of them. It might be the worst idea I've ever heard in my entire life. I don't think that's an overstatement either. I feel like if we just take over Gaza and we build resort properties there, I don't see a way that doesn't end in nuclear war.
I don't understand why we even would want to do that.
Because it's real estate. And
and
he's a fan of real estate. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of real estate too. Love land. They're not making more of it. Get in while you can. Just taking over the Gaza Strip, bad idea. Probably the worst idea in the history of ideas, I would say.
I don't think it's the worst idea, but I don't like it.
I would say this is probably the worst that I've heard.
Okay.
I don't see a way that this happens without some sort of nuclear exchange. It's not America first at all. That's like America last.
Agreed.
It is endorsing ethnic cleansing. Like literally that's what it's doing. So bad idea. And then building an American property there and just taking over, being like, fuck you. If you want people to get attacked on a daily basis, then I would say go ahead and build a property in the Gaza Strip and have it be controlled by America. That's a good way to do it.
I saw him say, like, we won't even have to pay for it. They'll just give it to us or something.
I think he's just riffing.
I think so,
I
too.
don't know that anybody in the White House was ready for him to say that. I don't know that Netanyahu was ready for him to say that. But
He definitely wasn't. Netanyahu was like, "Hey, yo, fam, that's my. I got plans for that shit."
yeah, that's our deal that we're doing right now. But Netanyahu, you can say what you want about him. The man is he's a skilled improver, and the one rule of improv is you say yes and you just roll with whatever the other person's riffing on. So when Trump was like, yeah, we'll put a Trump property there. It'll be ours. It'll be America. We'll take care of it. Yeah, Netanyahu was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Keep going. But yeah, he's just riffing. I don't know. I mean, but a lot of times his riffs turn into actual things. So
You're so fucking dumb. You're trying to say that the IR were only called terrorists because our government, yet they bombed my country over and over again, killing innocent people going to work, killed police doing their job. Terrorist, plain and simple. Moronic terrorist sympathizer. It's free real estate. It's not the worst idea, though. Relax with the emotional takes. I love that this guy, in literally the same minute, okay, went Donald Trump purchasing bombed out Gazan land and engaging in mass ethnic displacement, which is genocide, is good and based, and then turned around and said the IRA is a massive terrorist organization because they fucking killed cops. Okay? Oh, this is the guy who said, never mind. My bad. Why the fuck are you saying it's free real estate? Who cares about Trump? You tried to say the IRA isn't a terrorist organization. Bombing pubs in England is terrorism. No, I said that the designation for a terror organization is absolutely suitable for organizations that overwhelmingly target civilian populations. If you're talking about cops, that is not a part of the civilian population. Whether you agree to it or not doesn't matter. Cops in that regard, police in that regard, I'm not saying I agree with this, but police and military is enemy combatants. They're armed combatants, okay? Cops aren't military. I know cops aren't military, but cops still, in this regard, would be considered armed combatants. This is not even my designation, by the way. This is literally just like the official designation of terrorism. Ultimately, and I can't believe now we're going back to the IRA, the standard of violence is still designed by the colonial occupiers. And what the British forces did in Ireland was far more violent than the IRA's retaliation for what is seen, now at least, as a just cause. So I will not stand down from my defense. Okay? That's it. Resisting against colonial violence is always going to be a violent and sometimes ugly affair. Okay? The easiest way to ensure that ugliness and violence does not occur is by simply not fucking occupying another country. It's that simple. And yet people never seem to understand this. British people don't seem to understand this because historically they were the occupiers, and American people certainly don't understand this because, again, same principle, historically occupiers. Everyone else around the world gets it. Everyone else, every other nation on this planet, for the most part, have a very different story. A story of overcoming great odds. A story of national liberators fighting long and hard against some semblance of colonial entity, some colonial occupation. Do you understand? With the exception of some nations that don't. Nations that were historically dominant. Okay? Even America has a version of this against the British Empire. So hilariously, at least I can point to the fucking Revolutionary War for a second for Americans to kind of understand this dynamic. But that's it. You love watching terrorist freedom fighters on television and in movies, like real depictions, like Star Wars, directly created around promoting the Viet Cong. That was George Lucas's out and about intention at the time. Okay? The heroes in that story were the Viet Cong. At the time, America considered them to be terrorists. Same with Dune. Same with so many popular works. Okay? You love a good rebel story, but you fucking hate it when you are the evil empire in the real world. That's it. Just curious, in which authority this Asmongold guy talks about politics? You don't need authority to be able to talk about politics. And that's sometimes a good thing. And in other instances, it's a bad thing. But there is no... You don't need authority to talk about politics. And as a matter of fact, many people don't have it. The chatter is wrong about UK cops not being armed. They just ain't carrying guns 24/7 like US cops, but they regularly deploy armed cops in Northern Ireland and other places. Yeah, I know. Yeah. You know who else was a terrorist? John Brown. Okay. Straight up. John Brown was a terrorist. Yeah. He was fighting a just cause. He was fighting for a just cause, a moral one. Perhaps the most moral, the abolition of slavery. That's it. It's that simple. If you don't want violent retaliation, don't do chattel fucking slavery. Anyway, speaking of people, Luigi Mangione has released his first statement to the public since his arrest. Luigi Mangione says, I'm overwhelmed by and grateful for everyone who has written me to share their stories and express their support. Powerfully, this support has transcended political, racial, and even class divisions as mail has flooded MDC from across the country and around the globe. While it is impossible for me to reply to most letters, please know that I read everyone that I receive. Thank you. Thank you again to everyone who took the time to write. I look forward to hearing more in the future.
Hi, everyone. It's Mike.
This channel has an amazing and really well-produced video on the Troubles and how the revolution remains. Ireland's unfinished revolution. Damn, the Horses channel is pretty good. They make bangers. I didn't know they did one on the Troubles.
Michael, the owner, operator, writer of the Horses Creative Project. Just want to do some table setting before this video. Spent the past 2 weeks making literally 20 different cuts of this video, and they were all blocked entirely from being viewed on YouTube. This is because the BBC owns the rights to most of the videos of the Irish Republican Army. The BBC vehemently does not want me to use that footage. The result is this version of my video, which is occasionally punctuated by these messages. If you want an uncensored director's cut, you can find that on the Horses Patreon, which brings me to my next point. Moving forward, all Horses videos will be posted early, uncensored, and ad-free on Patreon before being put on YouTube. Patrons also get exclusive videos and a 20% off discount code for the Horses store. If you want to support my work, Patreon is a great way to do just that. Check it out at patreon.com/horsespt. Thank you. I hope you enjoy this video. When you think of the IRA, you likely imagine a wave of violence in 20th century Ireland. This is accurate in a sense, but it is a tiny, tiny snapshot of a much larger story. It is a story that spans 300 years. Even the popular term IRA is ambiguous to the point of near meaninglessness. There have been many, many different IRAs throughout this centuries-long conflict. Complex, polarizing, and intensely brutal, this is a story that will provoke very strong opinions. I think strong opinions are fine, but they should be informed. So, without further ado, this is the story of the Irish Republican Army. In the early 17th century, the British colonized a region in the northern part of Ireland called Ulster. Catholic Irish tenants and landlords were dispossessed of their lands. These properties were handed over to colonizing Protestants under the direction of King James I. And so began the harsh division of Protestants and Catholics in Ireland. This fighting went on for almost 2 centuries. It was bloody and brutal. As things continued, the English emerged quite victorious in their oppression and exploitation of the Irish people. But then, in 1791, a man named Wolfe Tone arrived to the picture. Tone, along with a group of fellow Irishmen, believed that the country should put aside its religious differences and unite against its common enemy, the invading British forces. Tone published a pamphlet advocating for this idea, titled An Argument on Behalf of the Catholics in Ireland. This pamphlet was enormously successful, and after its circulation, societies of United Irishmen began to appear in Ireland's largest cities. These societies sought a complete reform of the legislature, wanting instead a new system of